Electric Love. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Pablo. When this happened, June 2020. The drugs used, MDA, 4-HO-MET, and cannabis. At a dose of 150 milligrams of MDA, 45 milligrams of 4-HO-MET, and repeated use of cannabis throughout. The route of administration, orally and smoked. Gender, male. Weight, 125 pounds. Age, 17. Height, 5'8". Prior experience, cannabis, alcohol, mushrooms, cubensis and liberty caps, LSD, MDMA, MDA, EIPLA, and 4-HO-MET. For his set, he notes, girlfriend had just broken up with me, so a little depressed, but improving. And the setting, a forest on a lake with caves and cliffs throughout. Alright, so we have quite a unique combo being presented today. 4-HO-MET is a tryptamine we covered a couple times before, while MDA is an entactogen we've yet to cover that's often compared to MDMA. Both are reported to be stimulating and euphoric, 4-HO-MET bringing some mushroom-like vibes, but it is its own trip with unique characteristics. And this is the first report I believe I've seen so far where someone is doing this combo. It's probably most comparable to a hippie flip, but really, this is uncharted territory for the most part. There are many interesting visuals throughout, interesting concepts explored, and plenty going on in Pablo's experience. I'm sure you'll find this report interesting, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. Hello, this is a trip report from when I mixed 4-HO-MET with MDA some time ago. It was pretty crazy, and I hope the report is interesting, but it was pretty hard to explain what happened that day. I had always read and heard about people mixing entactogens with psychedelics and having beautiful, awe-inspiring experiences filled with love and beauty. The classic candy flip, hippie flip, nexus flip, you name it. I thought about which two substances to mix, and I decided on mixing the research chemical 4-HO-MET with MDA. I had recently discovered this research chemical from finding it on an online chemical store and doing quite a bit of research on it. I was drawn in by the reports of people experiencing beautiful visuals, euphoria, and a clear headspace. Upon trying it myself a few times, I came to realize that all of these reports I had read online were quite accurate. Because of the lighthearted nature of 4-HO-MET, along with the amazing visuals, I knew this would be a great mix with MDA. My friend had been wanting to try something like MDMA or MDA for a while, and since I still had some left from a few months ago, we had decided on doing it one day in a forest near his house. When the day came, my friend and I canoed into a clear spot in the forest with a large clearing and many rocks overlooking the water. Right as we got to the forest, we rolled up and smoked a joint, then set up our tent before going rock climbing in a nearby cave. After about 3 hours, I decided it was time to take the 4-HO-MET as I wanted to take it around an hour before we took the MDA to avoid still tripping during a potentially draining come-down. I mixed the 4-HO-MET powder with iced tea and quickly downed the whole glass. It tasted bitter and chemical-like, but it wasn't too bad. After about 10 minutes, I felt the 4-HO-MET in my stomach, and my breathing seemed a lot more detailed. I could feel more sensations on my skin. This was accompanied by some pretty bad come-up nausea, but it went away fairly quickly. As time went on, the body high was getting stronger and stronger. I felt as though I was floating out of my body, and I can hear and feel every little thing. I kept taking deep breaths, and I could feel the overwhelming euphoria of the air entering my body. I looked at a tree, and it quickly turned purple and started warping in a wave-like fashion. As I was staring at this tree, all of the trees in my peripheral vision also started warping and turning into different colors. They were duplicating all around me. At this point, the forest was alive with electricity, and the beauty of nature was showing itself to me in all of its glory. Knowing I was obviously tripping balls, my friend recommended that I take my shoes and socks off so I could walk barefoot through the forest. I didn't end up putting them back on until the next morning. By that point, about an hour had passed since I took the 4-HO-MET, and it was now time for my friend and I to take the MDA. Since we didn't have a scale, We broke a 400 milligram crystal into thirds. We each took a little bit more than a third, so we would each be taking around 150 milligrams. After we ate the MDA crystals, we went down to the lake to go swimming while we waited for it to kick in. When I got down to the water, the entire water had this purple, electric pattern over it, and the trees in the distance looked like paintings that were morphing into each other. No more than 20 minutes later, the MDA hit me with full force. With almost no warning, the entire earth shook, and everything started zooming in and out. I looked down at my legs, and I was amazed to find that they were way too small for my body. Everything in the distance looked way too far away or way too close. I looked at the trees, and there were no patterns to them, just dots and eyes, and a rippling effect that looked like oil and water. Everything was 10 times brighter, and the entire world was breathing and expelling love into every single thing on earth. The trees were waving and dancing, and the water was a purple sea of geometric patterns made out of pure energy. It hit my friend about 10 minutes later, and at this point, we started playing music out of his speaker. I carefully created a playlist for this occasion, as I wanted music to be a big part of it. Music while under the influence of a psychedelic is always an incredible experience, and this was no exception. The music took control of me. My body was uncontrollably moving to the music. I didn't even notice it at first until I looked down at my body, and it was swaying back and forth. My hands were snapping to the beat of the music. I didn't recognize this new body I was looking at. In fact, I could not even remember who I was. I didn't know what a modern human was anymore. All that I knew was that I was a being, a primal ape if you will, who was possessed by the spirits of love and dance. However, I didn't know that I was a part of a beautiful world, a beautiful universe. It was beautiful, and so was everything else. My ego was completely gone, and I was one with everything. I was a part of everything, and everything was amazing. Life was perfect. During all this, my entire body was tingling with a beautiful euphoria, nothing like I had ever felt before. I felt as though my body was tingling with an electric love and projecting it to everything in the universe, and everything was projecting it back into me. It was a never-ending cycle of love and understanding. I could feel every single atom touching my skin, and it felt amazing. The euphoria was so clean and so pure. Around an hour or so after taking the MDA, my friend and I decided it was time to smoke a joint and a few bowls. I don't smoke weed very often, so my lungs usually hurt quite a bit after smoking, and I cough a lot. However, when we smoked, the smoke felt like air in my lungs. Because of this, I was compelled to smoke a lot more than I usually do, and we got very high. However, it was not like a normal weed high. It just made the effects of the MDA and 4-HOMET much stronger. After smoking some weed, we decided it was time to explore this new alien forest. So, with our shoes still off, we started running through the forest. Every single foot placement was perfect. We were flying through the air, dodging trees and branches, and jumping off of rocks. I was the most in touch with my body that I have ever been, and I felt like a monkey flying through the forest. I felt so alive and so full of energy. We then ran, sprinted, and jumped back to the spot where we had set up our tents. We were talking about so many different things. Life, love, family, the fact that you can keep cutting something in half an infinite amount of times, bugs, how much we appreciate each other as friends, and the list goes on. The most notable thing we talked about was bugs. I have always had an irrational fear of bugs. They always gave me a very uncomfortable feeling. However, when we were sitting down on that rock by the water, we lifted up a smaller rock and out came around 15 little black cockroaches. Instead of backing away and feeling uncomfortable, I exclaimed, "Those cockroaches are so fucking cool." For the next 15 minutes, my friend and I talked about how cool bugs were and how there was no reason to be afraid of harmless bugs. To this day, I can confidently say that my fear of bugs is completely gone, and I am now aware of how interesting those little creatures are. Before we knew it, the sun was setting, and the MDA was beginning to wear off. We decided to make some colored lights by putting tape over flashlights and coloring in the tape with a marker. It actually worked. And then we set out on a night walk through the forest with our colored lights. This walk had much less energy. It was more of a relaxing experience where we had more deep conversations about our lives and the things we appreciated. When we got back, we built a fire to warm up and cook food. But since we were coming down from a rather intense experience, we had absolutely no appetite, nor any motivation to cook anything. We were cold and exhausted. For the next hour, I melted into a hammock as I was waiting for the rest of the MDA to wear off, so I could get to sleep. We were enjoying sitting by the fire and warming up until we heard rain start to fall. The rain started falling harder and harder, and we could hear thunder rumble in the distance. So we quickly put all of our stuff into the tent and then tried to fall asleep. Since I did not even have enough energy to smoke any weed, sleeping was rather difficult as I was still quite mentally stimulated. Not to mention, sleeping in a tent is not the most comfortable thing. Somehow, I did manage to fall asleep, but I didn't sleep long as I was awoken by the sunrise at 6 a.m. I woke up feeling absolutely drained of energy and emotion and couldn't move for a few hours. I still had no appetite, but I knew I had to eat something, so I choked down some eggs and a mango. I went home still feeling exhausted and had a good long sleep that night. The next morning, I woke up feeling better than I have in a very long time. My life seemed so much better, and I was so much more apprehensive of everything I have. Everything was going my way because I was open to everything. This experience was one of the most intense psychedelic experiences of my life, even more intense than my 7-gram mushroom trip. It demonstrated to me how truly incredible life and the world is.